Hello, hello! Welcome back to VBS Event Summaries. I am super excited to cover today's event because, as I mentioned in the last summary, this event was basically tailor-made for me specifically. Let's Study Hard is a VBS mixed event that ran on the JP server from September 20th through the 28th, 2023, featuring N25 and Wonderland Showtime as the supporting units. And it's not just my 3 favorite units in one event, no. It's my favorite characters, too. I'm talking An, I'm talking Musique, I'm talking Rui Kamishiro and Tsukasa Tenma in the same event. So yes, Kamiyama crew is back at it again and I couldn't be happier. Since this is a mixed event, there is no song, but who needs a song when you have this amazing lineup? Alright Sega, don't let me down now, bring me my shenanigans.
Musique? もう脅かさないでよ。どうしたの?
Off to a great start! Musique invites An to go with her to an apple pie specialty bakery, but since An has singing practice, she has to decline. Just as they're about to leave the building, suddenly both An and Musique are stopped by a teacher. The teacher has something important to discuss. So, An and Musique are in danger of being held back a year. Well, it's not like this is news to anyone involved. Though An has good attendance and shows up to school regularly, her test scores are abysmal and her grades are barely passable. Musique is the complete opposite. Her test scores and grades are perfectly fine, but she practically never comes to school. As such, the teacher dooms the both of them to supplementary lessons for a whole week, taking place after the regular school day has finished. Terrifying news indeed. The silver lining is that the other members of VBS take the news fairly well. There's really nothing they can do after all, and getting held back is worse than missing practice for a week. Kinda sucks that this is right after everyone quit their jobs or switched up their club activities in order to dedicate more time to practice. Although, Akito's been really quiet throughout this conversation. Toya clocks him immediately. Yep, Akito got shoved into supplementary lessons too. They're both chastised by their partners as the Vocaloids offer their support in their academic endeavors. Supplementary classes consist of mostly self-studying time, but the goal is a test at the end of the week consisting of the subjects a student failed. If they don't pass that test, they don't get to move up a grade. That's quite a bit of pressure for 1 week. Is that who I think it is? Hello, Kasa! Tsukasa got sentenced to extra lessons too, poor thing. I didn't think Tsukasa was a lackluster student, but apparently so. Enough to be forced to take supplementary classes at least. They all get to talking about the classes that brought them here. Tsukasa failed physics despite studying for hours. Musique failed English, but again solely because of her attendance. And though Akito and An don't want to spill their failures, they told VBS earlier about failing classical Japanese and 3 other mystery subjects between the 2 of them. So, time to get to work! An struggles through her worksheets for a bit before checking in on her friends. Musique is asleep. Sounds about right. Akito looks nauseous, and An thinks, word for word I might add, yay, he's suffering just as much as me. Vindication. An attempts to get back to work, but not before a few repeats of her catchphrase as of late. Zenzen wakannai yo. That's, I don't understand any of this. After class, Toya meets the 3 of them outside. He takes one look at An and Akito and decides right then and there to teach them himself. Though, as Musique points out, Toya would have to cover 4 separate subjects all by himself. Luckily, Toya already thought of this, and brought in reinforcements. Hi, Rui! Of course, if you'll remember from the cooking mixed event from a bit ago, Toya and Rui are already acquainted. Oh, and have I ever mentioned that Rui is basically a genius when it comes to robotics? He's got the math and science domains covered, while Toya can take over the literature and language classes. Rui also ropes Musique in as a peer tutor of sorts, and of course, Tsukasa was already planning on asking Rui for help anyway. I was wondering how Tsukasa failed physics when Rui is literally right there. Anyway, our group is established. Aha, our mystery subjects are revealed. An is working on classics and chemistry, while Akito needs to work on English and math. So it's those 4 subjects plus physics split between the 3 of them. Though, as An gets back to her classic Japanese homework, it seems to be structured like a group effort study session. This is a little bit off topic, but I wanted to mention the sort of classical Japanese homework An is doing. It's basically like reading an Old English sentence, figuring out the meaning, and writing a response on it. The English translation writes the sentence as, "The changing of the seasons stirreth the pathos of things in all manner wise." I'm not sure how it is for Japanese, since English didn't really have a standardized way of spelling words for a really long time, but basically, if you sound it out, you should be able to figure out what that means. And that's exactly what they do. I kinda miss the fan translation of this event. Akito has this line where he's crashing out over triangles, and the fan translation had him swearing up and down. Obviously, he couldn't say those sorts of things in the official game, but it's fun to headcanon it anyway. Musique and An walk home together that evening, and Musique stops to buy those aforementioned apple pies as a little reward for studying so much. It's packed, so An waits outside while Musique gets in line and goes over her vocab list a few more times. A few of her classmates run into her outside. They ask An about how the extra lessons are going, and when An mentions her friends who are helping her out, the unnamed classmates confess that they were hatching a plan to help her study too. But with friends like Toya, Musique, and Rui, An pretty much has everything covered. When Musique returns, they comment on how many friends An has. And it's not just students either. It's teachers and custodians and coaches. Musique is outgoing herself, but An is seriously on a different level. It's probably from all the time she spent on Vivid Street. A memory flashes by of when Musique and An met, since An was the one to go up to Musique and introduce herself. Right after starting high school, everyone avoided Musique, but An held no such reservations and talked to them like normal. Her friendliness and willingness to find common ground with everyone is what started their fast friendship, and Musique couldn't be more grateful. More importantly, though, the pies are really good. They look like the little handheld ones. I was imagining an actual big apple pie slice. The next day after school, Musique presents An with a little gift. It's a notebook full of notes on the subjects she's struggling with, complete with detailed explanations and examples. Some more studying passes, and when it's time for a break, they all play rock, paper, scissors to decide who has to go buy the drinks and snacks. As you might expect, An loses. Rui does accompany her to help carry all of the food, though. An thanks Rui for all of his help. Then the conversation drifts to Musique, since that notebook was a bit of a surprise to everyone. Rui smiles and says that he's glad Musique is having fun. Much more fun now, as compared to how she was in middle school. Yay for Musique character development! Oh, for anyone who's caught up on the 9-chord stories, this event takes place a little bit after Engeki, so Musique really is doing better right now. The next few days pass in a smooth routine. The only thing out of the ordinary is Rui's new device on day 4 that helps with memorization. It basically just beams the information right into the user's head. So I'm gonna need one of those for sure. Alright Rui, give it up. If Akito won't use it, I sure will. Aw, and then I mention. She brought some chocolates as a little pick-me-up, how sweet. Everyone say thank you, Nene Kusanagi. Finally, Friday arrives and it's time for the test they've been studying for. Everything hinges on this. But neither An nor Akito are letting the pressure get to them. Of course, neither is Musique, but would you expect Musique to be nervous over something like this? The test begins and An works through chemistry with minimal difficulty. Classical Japanese has 2 sections, one for kanji and the other for reading comprehension. She takes a look at the reading comprehension, and to her delight, the passage is the same one that she was given to work on during lessons. That is to say, it's the one she worked on with all of her friends. Finally, An is able to read and understand the passage. She works through the test with a huge smile on her face. Since Musique and Tsukasa only had one subject, they finish first. They both pass, of course. I wouldn't expect anything less from Mr. World Future Star over here. The results are in. Akito and An walk out of the classroom completely exhausted. Toya basically grabs Akito by the shoulders when he asks him how it went, and somehow Akito pulled through enough to pass. And An passed as well. Not only that, she managed to get a perfect score in classics. Hooray! All of that effort really paid off. Though, Akito says that they could have taken the test as many times as needed to pass. He saw one guy fail and get sent back to his desk to try again. But it's not like they could have passed without studying at least a little bit, no matter how many attempts they were given. So all's well that ends well. Now, before we finish things up for today, let me give you a bit of extra information. This event takes place right before the game's 3rd anniversary. Usually I wouldn't mention the anniversaries, but the 3rd one is extra important, because this is when all of the characters move up a year in school. That's right, since the start of the game 3 years prior, it's only been one in-universe year. Lots of great things happen for the 3rd Annie, but I think I'll wait until after it actually passes before I talk about that stuff. I'm only telling you the stuff about aging up a year because the final scene of this event is the closing ceremony for the school year. An takes a moment to reflect on everything that's happened this past year, which is more than she ever could have asked for and more. The trials and tribulations aren't over yet, but with all of her friends by her side, this coming school year is sure to be better than the last. I should hope so, anyway. I mean, Light Up the Fire only just happened. Sorry. You know I can't resist making Mizu 5 references, so I couldn't possibly leave Gekokucho out of all the fun. That's the point of letting these 2 cards ominously fade in. I'm super happy to finally be at the 3rd anniversary again. So much peak happens post 3rd Annie, and I can't wait to finally read those events and summarize them for you all. I'm also happy I got to see all of my favorites, minus Enna, of course. Though the Rurikaso wasn't all that prevalent, I'm just happy to see them as always. Seeing An and the others reflect on everything that's happened really makes me appreciate how far they've come. And that applies to everyone, too. Night Court's made some huge strides by this point. Now that I've given you all a sizable break from focus events, we're back to the main plot for next time. Akito's 4th focus event is called Burn My Soul. I'll see you then.